All right, welcome everyone. Happy Thursday at 2 o'clock. I just want to let you know we're going to move really quickly because we have this scheduled for an hour and we have a ton of good information that we want to share with you. Today's webinar is going to be brought to you by just two great organizations, AUSA and Michigan Aerospace Manufacturing Association. And first I want to thank General Manjar from USA.
Thanks, Mike. Welcome everyone to this cybersecurity seminar. The Arsenal of Democracy chapter of AUSA is certainly proud to support this joint effort with the Michigan Aerospace Manufacturers Association, and I'll abbreviate it MAMA. Our mission at AUSA is to educate, inform, and connect, and guess what we're doing today? Our chapter of AUSA covers the entire state of Michigan, and we have over 3,500 members, including individual members as well as community partners. AUSA supports soldiers, their families, Army civilians. We provide a voice for the Army, and we honor those who have served. AUSA is clearly the Army's premier nonprofit educational and professional association with over 250,000 members worldwide and 122 chapters like ours and over 2,400 community partners. Our presenters today are Karen, Mike from Systems X, and Jess Pellegrino and Todd Brady from Defense Cyber Solutions. Again, thanks everybody for attending, and thanks to our host, AUSA and MAMA. Next, I'd like to introduce John Geisler, the Deputy Executive Director of the Michigan Aerospace Manufacturers Association. John?
Thank you, Mark. The Michigan Aerospace Manufacturers Association is grateful for the opportunity to partner with AUSA, Defense Cyber Solutions, and Systems X on this important subject. It's amazing to me how many aerospace and defense companies think they are cyber secure just because their internet service provider includes a subscription to McAfee or Norton. Thankfully, those of you who've logged in today understand that good cyber hygiene is much more than a good antivirus software package. What you can do to help the industry, in addition to becoming CMMC compliant, is to please advise your customers and suppliers that you expect that they too become CMMC compliant. Our cybersecurity future depends on it, and so your encouragement of your fellow industry partners to become CMMC compliant is very important. Thanks, and back to you, Mike.
Hey, thank you very much, and we just can't thank you enough for all of us being able to get together and get this information out and help the defense contractor as much as possible. My name is Mike Bratton. I'm an IT success strategist with Systems X, also a CMMC registered practitioner, and my focus is to help business owners and IT managers attack real-world business challenges with common sense IT solutions. Today, I'm going to do my best to move us along so we can get as much information in the next hour as possible. If we look at today's agenda, really how we put this together is, look, we'll have over 150 attendees sign up for this event. So the need is there for information, and the issue that we have is majority of companies are still trying to figure out where to start. A few companies are tying up loose ends with Nist, and we have everything in between. So we're going to try to highlight some important topics based on your questions that you've submitted over during your registration and questions that you bring along here. So please submit questions as we proceed, and hopefully we can get enough time at the end to answer them, get more detail to questions that are going to benefit you and your organization. We will also email these slides out from the webinar, and we'll also try to, within a short period of time, get your recording of this webinar, so you also have that. First, we are going to get out the gate here with Jess Pellegrino. She wears multiple hats. She's the CEO of Defense Cyber Solutions. She is also a CMMC registered practitioner and Vice President of AUSA Michigan chapter. Jess, which hat are you going to wear today? Are we wearing all three?
Yes.
All right. Well, get us going.
Okay, so welcome everyone. And the first thing I want to say is those of you that are already moved along in your NIST 800-171 implementation are aware, and some of you may not be aware, but the government has issued a Shields Up advisory. This was issued by the Department of Homeland Security, Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency. And this is because of everything that is happening in Europe right now. As many of you have seen in the news, each president has called all their cyber hackers to come on board and help them. So it's a very vulnerable time, and it's very easy with everything, all the noise going on. And I don't mean to downplay the seriousness of the issue, but all the noise going on that you could have a breach. So please at this time, update your firewalls, update your passwords if you haven't changed them in a long time. Make sure you update all your software. A lot of the incidents happen because they find vulnerabilities in software, and that's why they issue an update. Sometimes it's not just for more bells and whistles. The bells and whistles sometimes are just to hide the fact that they found a vulnerability. And so if you haven't updated your software, please update it. And then please remember that under 3.6.1, you are mandated to report to the DoD any incidents within 72 hours. We've already covered that. You have to have your DibNet account. However, they're asking you to please voluntarily report non-incidents. There's a hotline number right here on the deck. You can call for more information or to report it at the hotline. It doesn't have to be DoD involved. They're just trying to find patterns. So please keep that in mind. If you're not already a member of an ISAC, please join that. You're going to have to anyway. This is a great way to get more information. This slide is to give you the information you're going to need. The government came up with this, the Department of Defense Cyber Crime Center, DC3, as a way to help companies in the DIBs. It helps partners better protect unclassified defense information, and it's at the same time, it's sharing and it's support. So that's a phone number, the toll-free phone number, and the email, and you can get more information there that will help you. So this is just information we're sharing with you. A few tips, as you know, in 3.2.1, you have to do cybersecurity training to your employees. There's 3 levels of training. The first one is for all your employees, for everything that covers cybersecurity, particularly detailed in your system security plan. The third one is to look for insider threat incidents. The second one is very roles and responsibilities driven for IT. If you could do your first and your third right now, that would be great. Remember, you don't have to wait until everything is done to start practicing some of these requirements. It's not an all or nothing. You can do your training and document it. And in the meantime, some of the things you may want to add to that training, if you don't have time because you're not there yet, just remember, ask all your employees to look twice before they open unexpected emails. Don't log into websites that look official until you've checked that it's official. Sometimes you want to open it up and see if there's something a little different. Determine within your own company who suspicious emails need to be reported to. Identify that person, let everyone on your staff know. If you get a phishing email, if you get anything that looks suspect, send it to whoever it's identified. And again, don't download documents or file from unknown sources because it's what popped up in Google. People can pay to be the first one to pop up. It doesn't mean that they're legit. If you're looking for any information that comes, any information regarding CMMC or 800-171, look to see if it has a .mil address. Make sure you go to the source. Don't go to these companies that are trying to sell you something. Some of them may be bad actors. The same thing is that when you get invitations on social media, don't think they want to network, they're connecting with you because they want it, just because they want to network with you. It could be a bad actor that's trying to get you to share information. So, and they all know, it's very visible on LinkedIn that you are part of the defense industry. So you are someone they want to connect with. So make sure you know who's asking you to connect. And again, as part of 3.1.2, if you can get your training, that would be ideal. The ISACs, it's in 3.14.3. One of the requirements is that your company has to join an ISAC. It doesn't say which one. However, The National Defense Information Sharing and Analysis Center is the official one that the DoD recognizes. So you definitely want to join that. There's an email for you to get more information on how to join. Then for the higher level IT piece, there's the itisac.org that was started in San Antonio, and that's a little higher level. But in the meantime, we can't give you a list of 100 different ISACs to go to. You need to find one that you're comfortable with, that you like. Please join one and then read their emails. Don't just join, set it aside. They're alerting people every day when they find breaches or vulnerabilities in software or hardware as well. If your company has presence in Europe, right now it's a very important time to join an ISAC in Europe. The European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, that is the website. It is unofficial, not unofficial, but it is unofficial website for the European Union. And if you go to that website, it will give you a lot of information on finding the right ISAC based on your location and your needs. So please make sure that you do that right away. Thank you. That is the update, but I want to just cover a little bit more before I hand it off to Karen on the self-assessment score. We've already covered where you go, where you register. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows what the values are, but we're having trouble with the scores. So I just want to cover some of the actual score to ensure that your company is doing it right. Everyone starts with a score of 110. When you don't subtract anything because you have all 110 requirements fully met, you have a perfect score of 110. And if you go to SPURS, it's going to ask you, one of the fields you have to join is, when do you expect to have a score of 110? So you start with a score of 110. You subtract the point value for all the requirements not implemented and documented. It can't be either or. If it's implemented but not documented, you don't get it. That are not implemented and document. All the requirements have a score of 1, 3, or 5. These are the requirements that don't get points, and you must subtract from the 110. First of all, if you don't have a system security plan, you can't even place a score in there because you have no score. So if you don't have a system security plan, don't go there and give yourself a number, because if the government comes in and audits you, that's not good. So you must get your system security plan going. Now, if you do have a system security plan, you start with a score of 110. If it is in a OM stage, you are NIST compliant. If you have a plan of action and milestones, you are NIST compliant. But you're not implemented, you don't get points for that. So you must subtract the points. If it's partially implemented, you can't give yourself, oh, well, it's 5, I've got 2/3, I'm gonna give myself 3 points. No, if it's partially implemented, you get 0 points. Subtract the full value. If it's implemented, you have a screensaver, you knock people off when they're idle, you knock them off the network, all these things that in fact, about 30% of your requirements are met in your Microsoft Office system. So, but if you're not documented in the SSP, you cannot give yourself points. So just because you have it and just because you're using it doesn't give you the points. It must be documented in the SSP. Now, here's the big one. There's 320 assessment objectives, and there's 110 requirements. When you get your CMMC assessment, or if you get a government audit, remember the self-assessment is low, medium, and high are done by the government. If you get any one of those 3, you must meet all 320 assessment objectives. If they're not met, if all assessment objectives for a requirement is not met, you can't give yourself points for that. So that's very, very important. Karen's going to talk a little bit more about the assessment objectives. And that's all I have for now. Thank you, guys.
No, thank you very much, Jess. And that's all good information that, I think we hear as we talk to a lot of these defense contractors. I did have a question that come through that kind of touches on the score. This is in regards to SPURS, and it says, how much weight does a SPURS score hold? And where do you get more information on the SPURS score? So I guess what they're kind of asking is what's the relevance still with SPURS?
So great information. One, you're mandated to have a score. If you do not have a score in SPURS, you can bid, but you cannot be awarded any contracts. The government knows there's going to be negative scores. They're not looking for perfect scores. They're looking for honest scores. It's going to carry weight if two bidders are exactly the same on everything, and that's the only differentiating factor. But primarily, you're right now mandated to have your score up there, and also your subcontractors have their score up there. You should not hire a subcontractor on a DoD contract that falls under the 7012 DFARS unless they have their score. And that's why you get a lot of letters from primes saying attest to your score. When are you going to be 120? You need to do the same thing with your downline. Now, as far as to get help, there's free help at your local PTAC. So find your PTAC. They have been trained. First, you open your account in PIEE, and then you go to SPURS. They will walk you through it. I just saw a question come through that suppliers can't see other suppliers. That's correct. That's why you send the letter. You're on the honor system, but now you have proof that, hey, I sent them a letter. He told me, or she told me that they had their scores first uploaded. Here's what it was. And now it's on them that they didn't do what they were supposed to, but you did what you were supposed to by ensuring, not by going in there and looking at it, but by communicating with your subcontractors, asking them, recording it, and ensuring that they are on the SPURS.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Jess. And looking forward to getting you some more questions. Next, I want to introduce my colleague, Karen Kieski. She's a director of client services for Systems X. She's also a CMMC registered practitioner. And take it away, Karen.
Well, thank you very much. And again, welcome to everybody. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon. A few of the things that I'm going to be speaking about will call back to some of what Jess was just talking to. First and foremost, we really do want to call out to everybody of making sure you are using official reference material to get both the latest information and the updates. With CMMC 2.0, it's critical that everybody understand that the controls that you need to meet are part of the Nist 800-171 revision 2. And again, you'll get these slide decks, so you're going to have the direct links to where you can pull that information. Another fantastic source of information related to CMMC 2.0 is from a Department of Defense website. It is the Acquisition and Sustainment site. And this document has all of the updates. Everybody knows that there was the, release of CMMC 2.0, making some changes to what the CMMC program will be about. So here, aside from the updates, you can also get, again, very helpful information and documentation. There's a spreadsheet and mapping document, scoping guidance, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about scoping in the next couple slides, and then the assessment guides. And these assessment guides are critical. Jess had mentioned while she was talking about the assessment objectives. And so that's what I want to talk about next. Is within these assessment guides, you're going to find these assessment objectives for each control. Like Jess said, we know that there's 110 controls, but there are 320 assessment objectives. And that calls out the very specific items that you need to have to confirm that you have met this control. So for the example here, this is control 3.1.1, the security requirement. You can see there are 6 very specific assessment objectives. And again, this is one of those that, like Jess mentioned, can be met by most controls you already have in place. It's talking about limiting system access to authorized users. So the first objective, authorized users are identified, that's really calling out, indicating if you're using an Active Directory environment that you have your users called out. You know who you have provided access to your system. But again, in order to achieve that score of 110 for each one of these controls, you need to make sure that each of these objectives are met. And again, what we're finding is this also helps guide you through this process. You're going to understand, if you were to have an assessment, what the assessors are really looking for. Next, we want to talk about how to just get started. As we're talking to different companies within the defense supply chain, first and foremost, we want to call it that the controls are listed alphabetically. And this is not the order in which you should approach trying to get these controls done. There's two controls that I'm going to talk about today that we really recommend help you get started, specifically around reducing the footprint of your system security plan. And the reason why we recommend that is that will save you time and money over your compliance journey. So I'm going to talk about these two controls next, the 3.4.1 configuration management and 3.1.3 controlling the CUI flow. So for the first control that we recommend anybody starting their compliance journey get started with, it is control 3.4.1, system baselining. Now, I'll be honest, this is a very complex control, but part of it is a critical piece in truly getting started. And it's about taking an inventory of what computers, scanners, printers, servers, software, what is within your network. The reason why it's so important to start here is that is the beginning of what allows you to start drawing your boundary, really trying to identify what is going to be contained within your system security plan. The next control is controlling the CUI flow. What we recommend for every company that we're working with is you have to really identify what is your current state. And we understand that's not always going to be your future or your compliance state, but it is critical that you understand what is your current state today. And what I mean by that is you need to understand and document how you are receiving, if you generate, if you're sending, storing, and eventually destroying CUI. What is that process? What does that look like? And who is involved? Identifying who within your organization is currently involved with that. But then the key piece of this is also identifying who must be part of that. Again, the must is a critical word here because what we're really talking about is, again, reducing your footprint. The fewer people that you have with access to CUI, the smaller that footprint can be. Again, these are just two controls. You know that there's 110 controls, but when we talk to companies that are struggling with I don't even know where to start. We found that these are two of the most important controls to really start getting you into this process and this journey.
Thank you very much, Karen. I had a question come through that have you answer here. Are contracts considered CUI?
That's a good question. And like we keep finding over and over again, there is not a black and white answer to that. It is really going to be dependent on what is in that contract. At a minimum, we know that it will be considered FCI, so that federal contract information, and that will require the level 1 controls. However, depending on the contract, it may, if it has a very detailed scope of work, and it depends on what is in that document, it may be considered CUI.
Okay, thank you. And just to remind everyone, keep the questions coming along because if we can get them in during the webinar here, great. And then keep them coming too for the end. We can get going. One thing that I'm going to briefly touch on that just has to be talked about, and if it's not in here, we're missing the point on some things. And this could be its own webinar. So as we continue on, we'll try to get more cadence behind these and picking some of these topics that you guys are finding the most important and hitting it more. But this False Claim Act is becoming a real thing. It has been a real thing, but now it's time to start taking it serious. You can see that they are starting to look at charges per violation. This isn't a scare tactic. You can see the Department of Justice obtained more than $5.6 billion in settlements. So this is going to be a way to try to get contractors to start moving forward on things. 3 things that they're looking at that would fall under the False Claim Act is companies who knowingly fail to comply with cybersecurity standards, companies who knowingly misrepresent their internal controls or practices, a company trying to procure a contract from the government represents that it encrypts certain types of data, for example, or if it tells the government that it has an incident response plan that it follows in the wake of the cyber breach, or companies who knowingly fail to timely report cyber incidents. And again, we could go a lot into this, but we don't want to get in the weeds. But the new CMMC 2.0 model may even heighten this for our contractors, for the fact that it's opening up, now that it went from CMMC 1.0 back to 2.0, it's opening up more self-attestation. So this is something that we want to look at. As I'm having conversations all the time, it's, well, I'm waiting to see what's going on, I'm waiting to see what happens. That's not the approach. And actually something that came through, Jess, I was going to ask you a question that we have here. What if I never signed anything stating we were meeting NIST standards?
Sorry, I was muted.
No problem.
Okay, so this is a really good question, Mike, and thank you to whoever sent it in. This has already gone up to the Supreme Court, and it says it's up to the contractor, not the DoD. So what happens is the DoD is responsible, the contracting officer is responsible for marking what is Cui and what is not. However, it is a contractor's responsibility to ensure that if it's not marked Cui, is it Cui, or assume that it is Cui. There was an issue where there was a breach. It was taken all the way to Supreme Court. He said, hey, my contracting officer never said it was Cui, and he lost. The company lost the case. So you have the responsibility for knowing whether it is Cui or not is on the company, on the contractor.
Okay, and if I'm just part of the defense supply chain and I have contracts, am I automatically considered that I am meeting NIST standards?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? If you're part of this,
so am I already considered that? Am I already saying that I test that I am meeting NIST standards, or do I have to have signed something, or?
No. I mean, right now, until CMMC comes up and you have third-party certification, everything is self-attesting right now. Everything. You can get CMMC assessed right now, but it's voluntarily. It won't be mandatory yet. Not for maybe it's 100%. In 2025, but it's going to be trickled in possibly in a year. November 4th was when the date started, when the time clock started, from 9 months to 24 months. But right now it's voluntary. There's nothing you need to sign other than when you accept a contract. When you accept a contract from the Department of Defense, you are stating that you are compliant. It is implied. You don't have to write a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be on a certain line. When you accept that contract, you're letting them know that you are NIST 800-171 compliant. If you're in the POEM stage, yes, you are compliant. If you do not have a system security plan, you really should not have any DoD contracts, nor should you be in the supply chain. Not now, not yet.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think this applies to what we've talked about on webinars since the beginning. And it was the corny phrase that I think I'll own up. I want to blame it on Karen, but I'll own it, that we always said, NIST now and we'll CMMC you later. So the focus here is let's tackle this, because at that point, CMMC doesn't look like such a large mountain to climb. Next, I want to introduce Todd Brady from Defense Cyber Solutions. He's the CTO, and he's going to be talking about a very important topic that I know a lot of you are on here today, is what are these alternatives to Microsoft GCC High? So go ahead, Todd. I think you're on mute.
There we go. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everybody, for listening today, and good job on working towards your compliance here. So getting back to this idea of being compliant while still saving money, yes, it is absolutely possible. It's not as scary as you think or have heard. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think Jess wants to give us a little bit of a disclaimer here before I go into some of the product details.
Yes, thank you. So this is where I put on my AUSA hat. We at AUSA and MAMA combined do not endorse products. We serve to give you information and to educate you on what you need to know. The DoD is expecting to lose 12 to 18% of the supply chain because they can't get compliant. So these webinars are to educate you. We're not endorsing a product. This is the time that we were mentioning it only because somehow that you must have GCC High, there's nothing else, or you won't be compliant. So we thought, okay, let's tackle this very uncomfortable subject, but know that we're not endorsing a product. We're just sharing information with you as AUSA and as MAMA. Thank you.
All right, so a little bit of product history here. When the DoD first started mandating compliance, there was not a lot to choose from out there. Everything was done manually. There wasn't a lot of software to help you. And one product came out, and it was the only one out there. And it touched on a good 1/3 to 1/2 of the controls all at once, which is great. But there were some downsides, as people quickly found out. It didn't fit all company structures. It wasn't a one-size-fits-all product. It was big and expensive, and the early adopters of this product, they paid the price. It restricted a lot of networks to the point where we had staff complaining that they were finding it hard to do business. They were spending all their days configuring and not so much using their systems. It required extra hardware sometimes. It certainly raised labor costs. And it was very heavy in the onboarding and upfront investments, scared a lot of companies away, which made them, they didn't want to become compliant because they didn't want to dive into that expense. You had to convert your entire domain over to the platform. Even if some of your users never even touched CUI and they weren't going to be part of your defense division, you still had to bring them in. And that caused a real large footprint, which, as Karen was saying, when you increase the cost of your footprint, your audit costs are going to go up. So once the DoD decided they're going to start auditing companies, then it caused a real problem on the back end because these companies had to spend a lot of money up front for this one only product that was available. And then they get hit with more expense on the back end if they ever get audited because their footprint was too large. So, and of course, I'm talking about our friends at Microsoft here, the GCC High product, and it's still out there. And it's a good choice for some companies, but not all. And a lot of our client base is finding out that it's only good for a few select companies of a certain shape and structure and size and who do business a certain way. Now, that being said, there's no products out there that'll get you 100% compliant. None. Not even the ones we're going to talk about today. They all just augment and they help you tackle certain controls, but there's still a lot of things you have to do on your own to get yourself compliant. But the good news is there's more options out there now. Less costly pieces of software. They're easier and less expensive to onboard and manage. They're less restrictive for the users. They can still touch on up to 1/3 or more of the controls all at once with just one purchase and implementation. And there's about a half a dozen of them out there now on the market. And I want to tell you about some of the features of those today. I picked one in particular. It's called PreVeil. And the first thing to say about them is that they're a SOC 2 FedRAMP qualified FIPS 140-2 compliant environment hosted in the AWS GovCloud. A lot of technical speak there, but all of those things are required no matter what product you decide to buy to help you with your compliance. You have to make sure they have all those things. And this one certainly does. So, and it touches on controls such as storage and backup of your CUI, encryption of your CUI. If you're going to transmit CUI via email, it addresses your network boundaries and dealing with mobile devices if you have those in your organization. User limits and access rights and permissions and things like that. Separation of duty helps control the flow of your CUI around your network. Logging and reporting of who's touching the CUI and least privilege rules for users that may or may not have access. And it's actually, there's a couple of things that it has that GCC High does not, which we really like. It doesn't transmit any passwords. It uses a system with encryption keys that are device-based. And even though Nist doesn't mandate you do it that way, it's a huge bonus in terms of security overall for your network because it avoids your credentials being hacked as they're being or stolen in midstream. And one of the things I really like is you do not have to divorce yourself from your 365 commercial platform. Most of our clients, they use Outlook, they love it, they want to keep on using it, and they can. This product just layers right on top of it and doesn't disturb that platform, so you can keep your Outlook looking the way you like it. And as another bonus, you don't have to convert your whole domain over to this platform. You can simply pick out a subset of users that you're going to have in your environment that are going to deal with your defense contracts and touch CUI, and you assign them to the platform. All the other users can stay where they're at. And this lowers your costs in two ways. Number one, a lot less onboarding and training in the beginning. And number two, if you do get audited by the DoD, your footprint, like Karen said, is going to be nice and small and nice and inexpensive because they're not going to touch the rest of your systems because they're only going to touch what's in your enclave, which is what the product would control, just those users touching CUI. And there's one last thing that I really like about this software. They have this thing called the boundary extension feature. You can actually extend your encrypted boundary out to your supply chain, even up to your primes or maybe down to your subcontractors. And you can extend the ability for them to communicate with you in an encrypted fashion via email, even if they don't own the product, and it's all free. So pretty neat. I mean, it's almost like you're giving them a bonus for doing business with you. So it's a bit of a sales pitch, because you can tell them, hey, we're doing a better job around here of our cybersecurity, because look, we're going to give you this little extension here and you're going to communicate with us in an encrypted fashion, and you don't even have to buy anything. So it's a nice little sales pitch for your people you communicate with, in terms of CUI. Now, we don't have time to mention all the controls, of course, that this product will affect, but I wanted to pick out a few that specifically have to do with encryption of CUI, because that's the most important thing at the end of the day for your SSP. The very first one is 3.13.11, employing FIPS validated cryptography to protect the confidentiality of your CUI. Basically, if you have CUI in your organization, you have to encrypt it and protect it. That's the rule in CMMC. It says that you have to use FIPS 140-2 validated methods to do that. So this product helps in a couple ways. One, it allows you to offload the responsibility of holding your CUI 100% to the vendor. You can put it all into their cloud environment because they've gone to the trouble to have all the right credentials to store it. You can offload that responsibility to them. It's FIPS 140-2 certified. It's in the AWS GovCloud. It's got its FedRAMP certification. Those things are all in place already. And barring some documentation on your part in your SSP to describe that you've offloaded this responsibility and how you did it, you can cover yourself on this control with this product. The next one is 3.13.8, implementing cryptographic mechanisms to prevent disclosure of CUI during transmission. This is an important one. Most people have to, at some point or other, start emailing or file transferring CUI to and from their vendors or their subcontractors or wherever it's got to go. This rule basically says if you're going to send digitally CUI anywhere, anyhow, you have to encrypt it and protect it, period. So this product helps in a couple different ways. They have a proprietary email system that layers right on top of your Office 365, your regular old email address, and it encrypts everything from end to end. The minute you send an email, it encrypts it. It sends it encrypted all the way to its destination before it's decrypted. And it prevents all the credentials from being hacked midstream while it's being transmitted. It's got its FIPS 140-2 certification in there. And the additional bonus, like I mentioned earlier, you can even extend the encrypted boundary to people that don't even have encrypted email, and they can join your inner circle to stay protected that way. And if you ever happen to accidentally send CUI to someone who doesn't have an encrypted email address, or they were not in your circle of friends already, they're not going to get it. It's simply blocked. So real neat features there. The next one, 3.8.9, protecting confidentiality of backup CUI at storage locations. Basically, if you back up your CUI somewhere, and of course you should, you have to encrypt it and protect it while it's sitting in a backup state. And good backup protocols tell us that you want to get your backups out of the building, away from your main CUI storage, just for good backup practices. So this product will help in a couple of ways. All the data that would be held in PreVeil for the purposes of backup would meet all of those standards that's required by CMMC, FIPS 140-2, FedRAMP, in the right data center. It's all in place already for you. You're basically offloading that responsibility again to a vendor. And real important here, the decryption keys are never held in central storage where the data is held, the data's backups are held. So even if someone got a hold of the data, they don't have the keys to read it anyway. So those things are kept separate. So if you use PreVeil for the backup of your CUI and you keep it separate from your main CUI, barring a little documentation again on your part, you can cover yourself on this control as well with this product. The next one, 3.1.19, encrypting CUI on mobile devices and mobile computing platforms. Most companies have to deal with this because they've got people that are attaching to the network with a mobile device and looking at CUI in some fashion. So if you allow that in your organization, could be a phone, a tablet, a laptop, something like that, you have to encrypt it, and you have to encrypt the method that they use to get to it. That's the important part here. This product helps in a couple of different ways. It sets up a view-only mode in a situation where there's no data actually stored on the mobile device. The people on the mobile device are just looking at it up in the cloud where it's already protected, and it's read-only, and it's deleted the minute they close the file. There's no instance left of it on their mobile device. Also, they engage biometric authentication on the mobile devices, so you know the right person has got a hold of the cell phone. It's actually looking at the CUI. And there's an administrative back end to this, wherein if a mobile device ever gets lost or stolen, the administrator can go in and immediately block that device from accessing the system. So it covers you in a number of ways for this control. Again, once you document how that's done and how you're using it, you can cover yourself on this control as well. Another one, 3.1.13, cryptographic mechanisms to protect confidentiality of remote access sessions. Most people are working remote nowadays, and if you're going to have that in your organization where people are accessing your system remotely, you have to encrypt the tunnel that is used to get up to the data wherever it's housed. So this product can help in a couple of different ways here as well. First, all the data that's sitting in the cloud storage is already encrypted, and it's already got all the right attributes to cover you on those controls. It replaces the traditional VPN that you may be using for your employees to get to your data. They have a proprietary app that is used for you to go from your endpoint, wherever it is, up to the cloud to look at the CUI, and it's all encrypted. It leaves no trace of CUI on the device in question that they're using to get to the data. Once they close the lid, there's nothing left there. So if someone loses the laptop, steals, it doesn't matter. Nothing's left on it. And again, barring a little documentation on your part, you can cover yourself on the control as well here for mobile devices using this product. Those are just a few of the examples of the controls that this product can help with. Due to time, we can't go into the detail for all of them, but take a look at the next couple slides. I listed out 22 more controls that this product will contribute to in some fashion, in some way. Dealing with CUI when personnel is terminated or transferred, protecting CUI on the internal boundary inside your network. You may want to keep CUI from floating into another part of your network just for the purposes of keeping your footprint small, and this will help do that. Employing network designs that promote your SSP. This product, certainly, you're required to buy software and hardware that promotes good cybersecurity, and this one certainly does that. Least privilege rules for users, it helps with that. Safeguarding your CUI at alternative work sites. If you have alternative work sites in your organization, this can help you with that as well. CUI transfer across shared resources, that's a big one. If you have shared computers where multiple people are using the same computer in your organization, this product can help with that. Deny all and permit by exception for CUI, just deciding who has access to CUI, there's a control for that. This can help with that one as well. Identifying use of the system in either authorized or non-authorized fashions and keeping track of who gets in and who gets out and what they look at. This can help with that as well. And on the next slide, I listed another 11 of them here. Anything to do with your audit logs for CUI or blocking access to it, this product can help with that. Tracking back and finding out if you did have a breach, who had access to the data at the time, and producing some kind of report to show. Because if you have to report a breach, you have to go through the records and find out who had access to what at the time and produce those records out of your audit logs. And this can help with that. Tracking down who makes changes to systems and who tried to make a change that they shouldn't have and was blocked, and that is all captured in audit logs. And this product will contribute to your audit logging, which is a control in CMMC. Even the last couple, replay resistant login systems and authentic communication sessions, those are usually things that are have to be programmed within your network, in your servers and things like that. This product can help with that as well, because it's keeping track of who's touching your CUI and the communication sessions thereof. So a lot of technical stuff in there, but the point is, and I didn't even list them all, but if you add them all up, there's about 40 or so controls that this product can touch and augment in some way. Out of your 110, that's 35% of your Nist right there. And as Jess said, if you're a Windows shop, and most of our clients are, you have another 30% of the controls you need that you can deal with just using the embedded native systems that are inside your Windows environment in your operating system. Now you're at 65% of your Nist controls addressed, or CMMC rather, as you graduate from Nist to CMMC. You've already got a hold of 65% of your coverage right there. 30% left, so you're 2/3 of the way home. Barring a few more bolt-on products and documentation, you can get yourself to compliancy, and it doesn't have to be a very expensive proposition. There's a lot of help out there. So hope I explained all that well. The main idea here is that product choices are company specific. There's never a one size fits all. You will choose your products based on your, your shape and size and how you're constructed and how you do business. We just want to give you some updates on, what was out there, because it's always changing, that landscape. I hope you find it helpful. A lot of our clients did. The slide deck is going to be available to all. My contact information is in there. If you have any questions about PreVeil or any other products, just shoot me an email. And Mike, I think we got some questions coming in, so I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, Todd, real quick to you. I know a lot of the feedback came back with GCC High that, it's not only expensive and isn't meeting the needs of some of the smaller companies and so forth, but it also restricts the ease of doing business. And that's something that we're always talking about with companies. Again, real world business challenges with common sense IT solutions. So it seems like it's a lot lighter and put together with another layered approach. It gives you not too much shock factor when you really start cramping down on these controls.
Yeah, that's a great point, because right in the Nist documentation, you get to set and decide on what's called your risk appetite. And that's where a company decides how much lockdown they really want to have, to the point where if they lock their employees down too hard, they can't even do business and they'd be out of business. What's the point of getting compliant if you can't produce your widgets? So you get to decide how stringent you want to get, and they give you some leeway there. And this is a perfect example of how you can do that. Yep.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much, Todd. Let's get a Q&A session going. We've had some chatting going on in the chat box, but we wanted to get you guys, if you can, start putting some more questions in the Q&A. Let me see. Karen, do we have? I'm also.
There was a good question. It is in the Q&A, and Jess did provide a response, but I think it bears just making sure everybody saw it, because again, we know that there's a lot of conversation, a lot of different topics being discussed. But there was a question about allowable costs associated with achieving CMMC level 3. Will the government pay for the third-party assessment? And Jess provided a terrific response of allowable costs are related to the contract mandates. The contract mandates CMMC certification. Your contracting officer will tell you what costs incurred by certification are allowable. One thing I want to add to this, because this question has been posed to us, I think, in a number of different ways about allowable costs, and some misunderstanding. There are no allowable costs as it relates to becoming compliant with the Nist 800-171 controls. That is fully expected. And that's why we want to share with you some of these tips and tricks we're talking about. This does not have to be a business ending operation. There are ways to get there without overspending.
Yeah, good point. Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, I just want to add something. So Nist 800-171 was mandated December 31st, 2017. The time clock has passed on allowable costs for Nist 800-171. And then for CMMC, it must be mandated on the contract. And so it doesn't mean that you have to get it right when the contract's due. You could have gotten it 6 months in advance. But point being, double check with your contracting officer before you make any assumptions on allowable cost.
All right. One question that I got multiple times through the sign up, and this is a question that doesn't necessarily have an answer, and it actually has to probably come from all of us. There was overwhelming questions about how much is this going to cost me? And there's, so many different approach to answering that, but I didn't know who wanted to kind of take it if obviously we get that question quite a bit.
Well, okay, I'll tackle that one. That's a tough one. So there's the good news is that when they redid CMMC 2.0, those 51 plans, policies, and practices are gone. That's where the majority of the cost was going to be, and probably equal to or surpass the assessment. But that's gone. So what we recommend is get multiple quotes. Don't find the first R3PAO that is near you or in your neighborhood. It may be cheaper to fly someone and pay their travel expenses. And maybe the travel expenses are $2,000, but their quote is $10,000 less. It balances out. So shop around and look. That's number one. Number two, or the other order, Shrink your footprint. The less they have to assess, the less your cost is going to be. We cannot say that enough. Don't give access to Cui to someone just because they have a title. Don't give them access to your enclave just because they're executive vice president or their CEO. Do they need to be there? Do they need to have that access? Do they need to be on PreVeil or Microsoft GCC High or whatever, or the cloud, wherever you're storing your Cui? You know, a lot of accounts payable people want access because they have to pay the bills. Well, no, sorry. We'll tell you what needs to get paid. We'll give you a copy of the contract. That's level one. So shrink your footprint. That's very, very important to bring your costs down.
Yeah.
And shop around.
Yeah, and well, we also get questions even further back than that of what is this going to cost to start implementing and even meeting the Nist controls and that sort of thing. And that's where it's so tough as far as tailored. But like Todd mentioned before, this isn't I have a turnkey solution. This is a combination of, you know, the internal IT team, outside sources, different layered approaches in order to get there. So it takes a lot of strategy behind it. So
Yeah,
to
Mike,
answer that question is tough.
I'll share with you the lowest price that we have charged to make someone compliant because their footprint was so small was around $7,500. And we have also charged above, 6 figures. So it all depends. It's all based on the size of your footprint.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we do stress to also talk to multiple vendors that may have specific lanes that they're very good in. And what ends up happening is it puts a lot less pressure on your internal team. It's going to save a tremendous amount of time and, more importantly, money. So that's a big stress too. Another question we had here from Austin was, how far down the supply chain do CMMC Nist requirements flow down? And he asked here, for instance, do suppliers that receive 0 CUI or FCI fall under these requirements since they are supplying for a prime contract, or they exempt from these requirements?
Anyone receiving Cui must have the appropriate certification. So right now, everyone has to be Nist 800-171 compliant because that's the DFARS, that's the big 7012, but not if it's an off-the-shelf product. If it's an off-the-shelf product, no, you don't have to have any compliance. If you don't have to give, if you can redact information and you don't have to give them Cui and just say, hey, build this widget, you don't give them what tank it's for or how it's going to be used by the military, then you determine, hey, I didn't give them any Cui, they don't have to be compliant. But if you're giving them Cui, they require the compliance that the contract requires. So if the contract requires level 1, contract requires level 2, if it requires level 3, your sub has to have the same level of compliance, unless, again, if you can manage not to give them all the Cui that you have.
Okay. All right, thanks. Hopefully that answered for you, Austin. Look, this is a question we get all the time too, and Craig asked this one: is CMMC 2.0 level 3 solidified and finished? And I think this is coming from, and I think all of us were kind of happy that we're not happy the fact that you had CMMC level or CMMC 1.0 going, and then all of a sudden the messaging seemed to be, oh no, we're moving it to 2.0, and yeah, this isn't going to be going for the next 2 years, and just kick the can down the road. And that messaging was I don't know if it was intended or not from the people putting it out there, but where are we at as far as level 3 being solidified and looking at a timeline of this is when I got to take CUI serious moving forward?
No, but Mike, I do want to add something. It has not been solidified, but they have already told us that a lot of what's going to come in CMMC level 3 is coming out of 800-172, which is the enhanced security requirements. So you can go look at it right now. You can go look at 800-172, you can download it, it's free, Google it, make sure you download it from the .mil website and not anywhere else. And look for your enhanced security requirements. We include that for all of our clients. We drop them in the template. There's only 14, there's not only 14, there's There's only 14 families, and there's one subset of enhanced security requirements per family. You'll find it in 800-172. If you want to get a head start on what they're going to be asking for, and if you know you're going to need level 3 because you do special projects, get started now.
Okay. Very good. We have any other questions come through, Karen? Why?
No, I've been watching the chat and the question and answer, and I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, I think some other conversations that I was looking is the whole, and we've all said this, that, everyone's just going to start marking everything CUI. So,
I just want to answer something. John said he's talking about removing, masking, or eliminating specific connective data from machinists. Yes, you can, and you should. So you can remove that connectivity data.
okay. All right. Look, I can't strenuous this enough. I mean, we try to be an education first outfit here. I mean, that's why we partner up with AUSA and MAMA, and it's about trying to get as much information out there as possible first. So we have ways to contact us if you decide the lane that it may fit in. We will give away free information. Ask the questions and let's have some conversations, because there's so much strategy behind this. There is no one size fits all turnkey option. And so if you see that, let's talk about that, because that would be interesting. Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, Mike, I want to just expand on, I answered a question on the chat about the Supreme Court stating that it's ultimately the contractor's responsibility to ensure what is and is not CUI. I want to make sure that no one thinks that the contractor has the right to say, oh, that's not Cui. No, it's your job to do the homework and confirm if it is or is not Cui. You can't designate it as not Cui. You have to confirm. So I just want to be very clear, because I don't want anyone thinking, well, I think it's not Cui, and then you don't have to treat it as Cui. I want to make sure that I think what I wrote can be read a little iffy. So I just want to expand on that, make sure that I don't guide anyone down the wrong road.
All right, thank you very much. And reach out to Jess if you have more questions about that. Next, I want to bring it back over to Michigan Aerospace Manufacturers Association with John, and he's got some upcoming events coming in 2022.
Thanks, Mike, and a big shout out to Defense Cyber Solutions and System X for putting on this webinar today. I know we've had a few in the past, and I'm sure we'll have some more in the future. The subject is certainly not going to go away, and there's a lot of compliance and subtlety to it. But one of the key things would be to fill up our hopper full of Cui information, and to do that is business development. So I've got a couple of upcoming events that may be of interest to you folks. The Space Symposium in Colorado Springs in a couple of weeks. Closer to home here, the Michigan Defense Expo is April 20th and 21st. If you're not exhibiting there, you certainly need to attend. And further on in the year, the Farnborough International Air Show. MAMA is having their welcoming reception again for that. The North American Space Summit up in Traverse City on October 2nd and 4th. And MAMA's having a pavilion at the Mexico Aerospace Summit in October. So these are all great events to be participating in, and getting a chance to develop the business that requires CMMC for your business.
Yeah, thank you so much, John. And next I want to hand it over to the general and talk about some AUSA future events.
Thanks, Mike. Listen, this was a great event today. I hope everybody got a lot out of it. Keep in mind at AUSA, we educate, inform, and connect. So if you take a look on your screen, we have some events coming up. I'd like to highlight two of them. One is 21 April, the annual breakfast meeting for our chapter. That's held in conjunction with NDIA's MDEX at Macomb Community College. We have a golf outing at Greystone Golf Club on 3 June. That'll be a fun event. The big event is 17 June, the 247th Army Birthday Ball at the Inn at St. John's in Plymouth. The invited speaker is the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, General Joseph Martin, a Michigan native. Also, just keep in mind the October annual meeting for AUSA in Washington, and we'll have our chapter community partner luncheon towards the end of October at the Detroit Athletic Club. So that wraps it up. Thanks everybody for attending. AUSA is proud to say that we're supporting this effort. Lots of good dialogue and good information today. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.